Hello, bear with me. The video's taking a while to load. Okay, there's one group. Say hi if you're watching. I'll get to comments in a minute. And okay. All shared. Okay, I am making spiced Easter buns and probably a loaf as well. It's a recipe from the OMG cookbook, and it's an adaptation of the linseed bread, and that one is in pretty much all of the cookbooks in variations, and this one is a sweet version, so it doesn't have to be the Easter loaf. You can spice this with just cinnamon if you want, or mixed spice could be an all year thing. But it's Easter buns because it's like a gluten-free version of like the Easter buns that are on Ketoroma. So this is, I think I've got everything, apart from I'm making one swap, which I'm quite excited about. So the typical linseed bread is mainly just linseed, egg, water, baking powder, yeast, and salt. And that can be quite a savoury loaf. Linseed is quite a savoury flavour. So I have my linseed. Sorry, the scales don't like this bowl. I have my milled linseed. Hi Sue, hi Julie. And I think this was all we had ground over at Rushden earlier. So I think I have the exact right amount. I need 180 grams. I've got 187. I'll take that. So this is quite a large batch of the linseed bread, and normally if you were doing a huge batch this size of 6 eggs worth, you'd use a lot more linseed. However, I swapped some of the linseed for almonds because it can give it a slightly sweeter taste. Hi Dan. Didn't have any ground almonds, but we have tons of tons of pecans to use that I've just quickly ground in the Ninja processor. Now I love using pecans as a almond swap in sweet stuff if we have them around, because it's almost like a caramelly taste. It works really well in a cheesecake base. If you've looked at the baked chocolate cheesecake recipe, I use pecans in that base because it gives it a really good flavour. So these were just quickly blitzed in the processor for just a few seconds. You don't want to blitz them too much because you don't want to make pecan butter. Well, I do want to make pecan butter, but not for this recipe. Hi, Karen. So those are the two flours. Coco started snoring, so hopefully it's not that loud. But that's what that is, if you can hear it. Next, yeast, baking powder, salt, and spice. Basically all of the sweet stuff. So baking powder, we want 3 teaspoons. Oh, wrong side. I want the sprinkle. Which is going to be about 12 grams. You can use teaspoons if you want. I always weigh it. Yeast. 1 sachet of fast-acting dry yeast, which is 7 grams. Most sachets are 7 grams. This does help with the rise. It does add to the flavour a little bit. Coco's just shaking herself awake. I don't know how. It does add to the flavour a little bit, more so in the savoury versions, but it also does help with the sort of bready texture. And last thing, oh no, not last thing, 2 more dry stuff. This is a new bag. Thought I'd open it properly. I need 25 grams of sweetener. This is an erythritol and monk fruit. You can use erythritol and stevia. There are other conversions on the website if you prefer. Final thing, hi Sandra, is 2 to 3 tablespoons of mixed spice, which will probably be the remainder of this jar. In fact, I'm going to use all of it and maybe add a little bit of cinnamon to it as well, because we do like the spice. That was maybe 2.5, but we have a big tray of cinnamon. That's powerful. A little bit of extra cinnamon to account for missing mixed spice. Alright, that's all of the dry. This mix, along with all of the linseed bread variations, is very simple because it's mix the dry ingredients, then add the eggs and water. And in this case, we've got vanilla extract as well as a liquid. And proving it does nothing, so don't wait for it to sort of rise for ages. Leaving it to rest for maybe 10-15 minutes helps the seeds sort of absorb some of the water, but it's quite quick bread because you don't need to prove it, and it doesn't take long to bake either. So how much water? 180 ml of warm water. And 6 eggs, which is quite a lot in terms of our bread recipes, but it does make a lot of bread. Now our plan is to scoop a couple of rolls out and start baking them whilst we do the rest, so that I can show what they look like towards the end. And I'll make the rolls quite small just so they bake properly. There are some additions you can add to this. Obviously, this is just a spiced bread. You can add chocolate chips, so get some 85% dark chocolate. Or if you're low carb rather than keto and you wanted to add some dried currants, then you could. Obviously, be aware how much you use. In this recipe, we've said an optional 25 grams of dried currants for this entire batch, and you chop it up even smaller to sort of keep the sugar levels down. But I very rarely use that because we usually have some homemade jam in the fridge. So a teaspoon of vanilla is the last thing to go in. And my favourite way of having these is sliced toast and smother a load of homemade jam on. So you don't really need the fruit in the bread because you're putting lower carb fruit on top of the bread. Right, so this will go through a couple of stages. Right now it's in the stage where it's very gloopy and it's not quite mixed in. Once all of the seed has sort of broken down from the clumps it was in, you get a very, very loose mix. Just leave it. I mean, I suppose at this point, if you're pouring it into a loaf tin, you don't need to leave it because, you know, it can sit in the loaf tin. You don't need to wait for it to absorb more moisture in the bowl. But you will notice a change in the thickness of the dough just after like 5 to 10 minutes. So in the meantime, I'm going to pop the Ninja on, bake, and oven 180. So I'll do it at 180 because I want these to bake fairly quickly. Bake the individual rolls for about 20 minutes, or the loaf for 40 to 50 minutes. So we'll do 180. And I'll just sort of set the time going. As I said, I want to get some baking whilst I'm still live because I don't like just turning the live off once I've done the mix because I'm looking to show. But these bread, you want to leave it in the oven until it's properly cooked. You've got a nice crust. So I'm going to do a couple of very small rolls so you can see the colour, because it is quite light colour at this point. And if you look at the photo, you can see it does go quite dark. That photo there is what I'm going to do with the roll. No, the loaf, sorry. It's got chocolate shavings on top. So actually, whilst we're waiting, I don't know where my dish has gone for this. So I'll just use a random tub. Little 85% chocolate, our favourite. I don't need a lot, we'll use 1 square and I'll have loads left over. So as I said, you can chop up chocolate to go in the mix, or this does look quite nice. Little chocolate shavings. So, is anyone doing any sort of Easter baking? Does anyone do anything for Easter? Because we don't really. This is my Easter baking, and it's just because I thought I'd do something Easter themed on the live. I'm using a very fine grater. Oh my god, this smells amazing when you grate it. Wow. It smells like I've walked into a chocolate factory. Ah, nice too. So you're doing lamb at work, and then you're hoping to take some home on Sunday. We have some lamb steaks in the freezer. But I'm having an Easter fest later on this evening, if you can call it. Is that when you're going to that influencer event, Dan? Yeah, see, we didn't really do Easter eggs either, Sandra. This smells like flake. I don't know why, but it does. I'll see if I can grate more. It's lucky that my hands are so cold because the chocolate would have melted by now. Oh, fun fact, I've just turned the Ketoroma website back on, so there's no password anymore. It is available and taking orders once again. Obviously, all orders that we do take will not be dispatched until, at the earliest, Tuesday the 11th. I have seen cheese Easter eggs, Dan. It's never been something that's sort of made me go, oh yeah, I'll get a cheese Easter egg, because it's probably just going to be overpriced cheese. Also, one bit of warning. In Aldi, there is what they're advertising as 0% sugar chocolate Easter egg. The first ingredient, if I remember right, is maltitol, which is a sweetener we generally avoid. So if you do see that and think, oh wow, they've got something for low carb keto folk, I don't think it's going to be very nice. Maltitol stuff generally isn't very nice anyway. But it also has quite a high GI, so just save your money. So actually I think it might have been in Lidl. No, it was in Aldi. I was in Wellingborough. Just get some 85% chocolate. Alright, that is almost all of the chocolate chunk grated down into little shavings. That's weird. It's almost static. Let me take it from the sides of there. When I shook that then. If anyone knows the science behind that, let me know, because I don't know what happened there. Alright, the mix has been sitting for a little while, and hopefully you can see it's a little bit more gloopy. Now, if you want nice round rolls, then let that sit even longer. I'm going to chuck some in the tin now, just so that I can get them baking and we can see the result. But they're going to be more like pancake, not pancakes. They'll be taller than pancakes, but like maybe scones. So I'm just saying, don't set your expectations very high, okay? I'm skipping a vital step in the recipe to show the result. So I am trying, so 1 scoop there, I'll do another scoop on top. So I'm trying to sort of get it to hold a fairly roll-like shape. But it will be flat because I'm not using any mold, or I'm not letting it sit to absorb more water. If you wanted really tall rolls, I suggest using like large cupcake sort of cases. Something with a bit of structure to sort of hold it together. That's why the loaf tins work really well. Okay, there we go. I'm going to tilt that ever so slightly so you can see what I've done. These are going to go in the Ninja. So I think instead of making more rolls, rustic. Thank you, Dan. Everything I do is rustic. Apart from the marble cakes, because they look genuinely good. And they tasted good. Okay, I've got these mini loaf tins. They're probably about £1, as in weight. Although to be fair, you could probably find them in Poundland. Let's just fold that back. A rock bun. There we go. Easter rocks. Maybe more like pebbles because they're not very big. Okay, I've lined the tin with greaseproof because these are definitely not non-stick. Like with any sort of Ninja baking, I do want to be aware that if I have greaseproof that like coats over the top and is out everywhere, it will just get blown around by the Ninja and then it won't bake the bread inside. So just don't go overboard with greaseproof. That probably goes for any sort of oven, like a fan oven, where you've got a lot of circulation. See you later, Dan. Okay, so we've got 2 loaves. Okay, so this mix apparently fills both of these. It says, the mix should now be quite gloopy. See, I always use technical terms. Take a spoon of the mix and place it on an oven tray lined with greaseproof paper. The mix should hold its shape. So that's after resting it for 15 minutes. We've definitely not rested it that long. Alternatively, divide the mix into small individual tins or silicone muffin cases, or pour the whole mix into a lined loaf tin. We use an 8-inch loaf tin or 2 smaller 9cm by 15cm tins. That's those because that's the same in the photo. The 8-inch loaf tin is the larger Ninja loaf tin. That one I would still use greaseproof, but it's not necessary. It just makes it easy to get it out, but it's a non-stick one. We grated some dark chocolate over the top of our loaf before baking. Bake the individual rolls for around 20 minutes or the loaf for 40 to 50 minutes until it's firm to touch. You may want to take the bread out of its tin/cases for the last 5 to 10 minutes of baking to give it a nice crust. I really like doing that actually because sometimes it's cooked all the way through, but it's just not got the colour all the way around. So I'll see how much mix. I mean, you can see the mix is sort of holding together a little bit more now. With the linseed bread, and this goes for if you're doing this version or the savoury version that's in the library, and most of the breads in the library, to be fair, the soda bread and the zucchini bread come to mind. They don't rise huge amounts. Sorry, the bowl's in the way. So I've filled the tin with 315 grams of mix, and we'll see if I can add a bit more. There's maybe 2 centimeters between the top of the loaf mix and the top of the tin, and it'll probably rise to just over the tin. The linseed bread in particular, people can say, oh, it's quite wet in the middle. Usually that's because you've used a really deep loaf tin. And if you do that, so for example, the Pullman tin there, I would never fill that all the way to the top with linseed bread mix, because although you would get the height, it would just not bake all the way through. Linseed is quite linseed bread, there's a lot of moisture in it. So just be aware, if you're going for height, you might be disappointed with the texture inside. So I wasn't far off. It's probably going to be maybe 330, 340 grams of mix per tin. Yep. As with all of the breads and the vast majority of the recipes in the library, this is maybe 4 or 5 days in the fridge, or freeze it. Freezes really well. I'd slice it before, make it easy for yourself. Don't store it in a bread tin on the side. It has no preservatives in it. It'll go off. Okay, 355. Obviously, I've written this recipe to our tastes, which most people seem to agree with, but if you want to add more or less spice, taste the mix before you put it in the tins and add more or less spice. Well, you can't really add less, but go along every maybe tablespoon until you get the right spice level. And you could always do like a dusting on top. In fact, I might do that because I don't know whether I've got enough chocolate shavings for 2 loaves. So, although maybe I've got plenty. You could add this on after you bake it, but I quite like the dark colour of the chocolate. A nice sprinkle. Yeah, I've got plenty. Do you know, I actually never checked when those rolls went in the Ninja. I'm going to presume they've been in there for maybe 5 minutes. I can't believe I've done all this in 25 minutes, to be fair. So if you have any questions whilst we're waiting, feel free. Or, should I say, if you have any questions about something simple, ask me now. But we do have a Couch Time Q&A tomorrow with Dr. Ian Lake, which should be very exciting. So that's at 7:30. And like this, it's on our Facebook and YouTube channels. This is a really generous topping of chocolate, I have to say. We also have our Friday Q&A that we've tried to do for the past 3 weeks. And I'm almost certain we'll be able to do it this week because the bakery is not functioning on Friday. Or not in its usual capacity, anyway. I think the Ninja was on 30 minutes when you put them in. Thank you, Karen. You're so observant. I was like, okay, so apparently they've been in for 5 minutes. I won't open the Ninja yet. Like with most breads, don't keep opening the oven because you're just going to get them to sink. So just leave them, especially with Panda bread. I've been doing the instructions for them recently because we have lots of snazzy new labels on their way. And I'm putting, do not, under any circumstances, open the oven until it's done. I'll break the rules for these rolls. But not for another 5 minutes or so. What are you laughing at, Sue? What have I said? This is what I'm using, or will be using, to serve this with. I made some homemade jam. And actually, this is a very lazy version of Friday evening. We will be live. We will. Because we're not dispatching any orders on Friday, so we're not going to be in a rush in the afternoon. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. This is a very lazy version of jam in which I literally just cooked down berries. I don't even think I added sweetener because the berries were quite sweet. I just cooked them down until, there you go, you can see the texture of them there, until they sort of mushed down by themselves. I keep forgetting to pick up chia seeds from the bakery, which is what we usually use to thicken this. But actually, it's more like a fruit puree, but it makes a really nice topping for this sort of bread. Obviously, earlier this week we were sampling the Easter spice bread on Ketoroma, and this went really well with it. So that's serving option. Or obviously butter. I never go for that, but I know a lot of people would. Whoa! Oh my god, I think they're almost done. Wow. Okay, let's get some space cleared. They've got a nice colour on them already. I'm acting surprised as if I haven't done this recipe multiple times before. I've written this recipe and published it in a book, but so they're not rolls, and they're not quite scones either, because scones are very technical. We're not gonna use the word scones. We'll go with rock breads because they're not rocky in texture. They are bready in texture. Okay, I need a towel. Oh no, I'll use. No. Someone's moved my oven gloves. I don't know where they've gone. Okay. In hindsight, I should have added greaseproof to the bottom of this. It is a non-stick tray, but sometimes that doesn't include everything. Although, apart from a few scraps there, it's come off in one piece. So top tip, line your tin. I'm sure it says it in the book. That's the colour I'm looking for. Obviously, with these, you won't be able to see as much because it's covered in chocolate. But if you compare that to the colour it was to start with, it's got a definite golden sheen to it. And I would add these for another 5 or 10 minutes to get like a nice crust, and maybe even turn them over to get a crust on the other side. But yeah, they're fully baked. You can see the steam coming off them. They're fully baked, and you've got a nice. Hang on, let me come around, and I can maybe get the camera to focus. 1 second. Oh, yes, it focused. There you go. There's the texture. I'm going to take it out now because that's very hot. I'll do a taste test whilst we're here. It's been a very quick live. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you haven't done some Easter baking, then maybe you can with this. Very nice. Yeah, that's good. I know Dad would want more spice, but I'm not a huge fan of cinnamon on its own. I prefer mixed spice. So for me, that's really good, especially with a bit of jam. The loaves, let's see if I can take tin off. That's not hot anymore. Not as much as that is. I'm going to pop this rack back at the bottom, and annoyingly, I can only fit one of these in the Ninja at a time. But I'm going to turn the temperature down for this to 170. So that's the normal 180 in a standard oven. And time, I'll do 25 minutes. And then I'll just check it. And it'll probably need a little bit longer, again, outside of the tin, maybe 35, 40 minutes total. For a large loaf, it's going to take 40 to 50 minutes. Hi, Kathy. I'm done. I've baked the rolls, or rock breads as I've called them, and I've put the first loaf in the oven. I mean, you can watch back. But here you go. Nice golden colour. And nice sort of fluffy bread look. Yeah, missed it. Sorry. So we have Cash Time Q&A tomorrow evening. Let me get the links. There's a link to the live cooking page. If you've seen the timetable already, did you enjoy the Easter bunny that I put on today's live? Which was a bit of fun. Catch Time Q&A with Dr. Ian Lake tomorrow at 7:30. And then Friday, we have the Q&A we've been trying to do for 3 weeks, which is just our usual Friday chat. If you want to have serious questions, come to tomorrow's Q&A. If you want to have a chat, come to Friday's Q&A. That's at 6:30. And that's it, because then we are not doing anything over Easter. So I'll see you like next week sometime, but there won't be a live on Monday, so the earliest it'll be Tuesday. But we'll see, because next week might be a bit hectic. So as always, the timetable will go on that page, and if you get emails from us as Keto Fitness Club, then you will get sort of the usual weekly recap. And obviously, if you have the app, you get notified when we go live anyway. So thank you very much for watching. If you do have a go at these, obviously, post in the groups and let us know what you add to it. And yeah, I shall see some of you tomorrow evening, maybe. Goodbye.